I'd love to have or share some like awesome story about how I grew up as a kid running my own home service business, but it actually wasn't the case. What happened was when I was in university, I started freelancing and kind of just to give you a little bit of backstory, I was in a 3-year degree, and that first 2 years, when the summer came around, I wanted to get a job in my field working in a business, but it's not very common for a big corporate business to hire on a student just for the summer months, just to have them trained and then go back to school. And so I talked to my program head because I knew that he had a consulting business and it did quite well. And so I asked him, what should I do? I kind of want to start my own thing. And it was actually me and my friend, but I asked him that and he said, just pick up the phone and start dialing. And I was like, okay.
Stephen, thank you so much for joining us on the Pet Waste Millionaire podcast. We have EJ McCoy, the actual Pet Waste Millionaire, and it's always one of those weird things where I introduce I'm the co-host of the Pet Waste Millionaire podcast, but I'm not actually a millionaire, and so it kind of hurts a little bit every time I bring it up.
You know one though.
Yeah, I'm closely associated with one, and he's actually nice to me, so that's good.
And I can't do anything without Ben, so I'm pretty useless.
Oh.
There you go.
He's got to host it. He's got to host.
Yeah.
He's got to be the co-host, because if it was just me as the host, sometimes we'd be done in 5 minutes, and other times we'd be done in 3 hours, and it'd be somewhere in between. And
Love it. Yeah.
he helps keep me on track.
Yeah, the way I like to frame it is it's about engineering the conversation and the experience. That's what I'm trying to focus on at the very minimum. So Stephen, real quick, would you mind just sharing for us a little bit about the business that you run? Again, where you're located. I know we just talked about that a second ago. Yeah,
absolutely.
Give us the basics.
Totally, man. Yeah, thanks for having me here. I'm super excited. This is actually my first podcast. So very new for me doing this whole recording it and talking on a camera. But my name is Stephen. I appreciate you guys for having me here. I run Flex Marketing or Flex Web Design. I'm 22 years old from Vancouver, West Coast here in Canada, and started this business a couple of years ago. Started off as just freelancing as a college student. I'll keep it brief. We can get into, maybe a little bit more of the story in a bit. But ultimately, we work with home service businesses, construction companies, HVAC, plumbers, all that good stuff. And we help them with their marketing, sales to essentially increase the money that they make through their website, SEO, and various marketing channels. Not the I guess prettiest or sexiest explanation, but hey, it makes people money, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal of your marketing, right?
Yeah.
So did you go to school, your formal education, is it in marketing or is it something different?
No, so I mean, yes and no. So I pretty much went into university right after high school. I was blessed to be able to have my grandparents put me through university, so I didn't have to worry about too much there. And it was a business degree. And I was studying information technology and data analysis. And so not too much about marketing, really. We would kind of have some of the classes and the lectures with the marketing students. There's different kind of cohorts of students that would, make fun of each other sometimes. There's the marketing students, the IT students, the nerds, which was us. But I think, the data analysis part, learning how to take information and consolidate it and learn how to use it to make decisions about business is really what I took from that. And that's all marketing is, really, right? It's not just going into Canva and making some cool logos or creatives, right? It's about taking data and using that to make decisions for a business, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. So the home services industry is a very specific thing, right? How did you find yourself working with those types of businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to have or share some awesome story about how I grew up as a kid running my own home service business, but it actually wasn't the case. What happened was when I was in university, I started freelancing and kind of just to give you a little bit of backstory, I was in a 3-year degree, and that first 2 years, when the summer came around, I wanted to get a job in my field working in a business, but it's not very common for a big corporate business to hire on a student just for the summer months, just to have them trained and then go back to school. And so I talked to my program head because I knew that he had a consulting business and it did quite well. And so I asked him, what should I do? I kind of want to start my own thing. And it was actually me and my friend, but I asked him that and he said, just pick up the phone and start dialing. And I was like, okay. So I just go to Google Maps and then started calling a bunch of people. And it turns out that most of them were home service businesses, right? And so that's kind of how the natural progression came about. And then ultimately, like, I didn't know it at the time, but I was just doing market research. I was just calling up people being like, hey, I do this stuff. I know how to do this. Do you need any of it? And, of course, most of the time it's going to be no. But I learned about what people needed and what problems they were having in their business. And a lot of times with the home service industry, it's the marketing part of things.
Right.
Yeah.
So Stephen, when you talk about, I'm picturing you starting to pick up the phone. So you were probably calling how many people a day when you started that? Was it 100? Was it 80? Was it 200?
Yeah. So it wasn't a lot. And knowing what I know now, I should have been doing more, right? If I could go back in time and give myself advice, it would be to do more volume. But it was maybe between 20 and 50 people.
Okay.
But, the biggest thing was that I did have leverage in that activity because I was local and I was calling local businesses. And so, and a big thing with the home service and the trades is like, they're going to connect with real people. Like they want to see that you're just a real human being that's going to talk to them like a real human. And I'm just like, hey, you know what? This is kind of like, my name is Steven. I'm in the local area. This is actually kind of a cold call. Just curious, X, Y, Z. And then it kind of naturally took off and was able to build relationships and rapport from there because I wasn't really trying to like sell anything,
So you were just talking to them. You weren't necessarily telling them that their SEO needed to be better or that you could help them with this digital marketing campaign. You were just calling them up, talking to them about what their needs are.
100%. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And is that how you kind of etched out your niche? Like, did you start off with the idea that you were going to do SEO in home services and it kind of spread out into digital marketing, or were you thinking, or paid digital marketing, search, that sort of thing? Or did you start off on more, I'm going to do marketing, and you found SEO?
Yeah, it's a good question. It was exactly that. So I started off with web design and then it naturally progressed into SEO, right? Before I didn't have any experience in digital marketing. Nothing. I just knew data analysis and I knew how to build a website because that was one of our projects in university was building a website for a company. And so I knew how to do that. And so I just, called the companies. And then over time it progressed, of course, to SEO and just lead generation, paid now Google ads, because, of course, as a business model, you want to have something that's reoccurring, and with just focusing on website design, it's not the best business model if you're just starting out, because you're kind of having to sell everybody new every single month.
Right. Yeah. But, you start from zero at the beginning of every month. Exactly. Whereas SEO and getting paid, on some sort of a monthly retainer, it makes it a little easier to build your business. We see the same thing in home services. My background is lawn mowing and poop scooping, which are recurring, simple services.
Right.
Whereas if you're in home remodeling, you're like web design. You're starting at zero at the beginning of every month.
Yeah. But it's bigger jobs, and that's one of the things that I talk to my, like a big one is tree service companies. We have a few tree service clients, and there's a lot of missed opportunities, and maybe you could speak on this a little bit, but missed opportunities to upsell clients on different services, right? There's gutter cleaning, right? When you go to a property, it's like you're not just going to a property to quote them on the thing that they need. There's so much opportunity on that property, in that home, to be able to upsell them on new services, right? Even in the tree space or maybe the pet waste space, create reoccurring revenue business models to maintain it, right?
This is where my ADD or ADHD and my love of home services and my love of just entrepreneurship inside of home services, which is what I know. This is where Chorby was born, was this idea that it's like, gosh, I'm mowing their yard. Okay, great. Now I'm going to sell them fertilization, weed control. Okay, great. Now I'm going to sell them pest control. Okay, great. Now, why can't I sell them? Why can't I offer the service, just about any service they could possibly need as a provider? And that progression over my entrepreneurial journey is really where Chorby was born, was this idea that, why can't is it not more convenient, if you can do it right, for a homeowner to call one company to do everything they could possibly want? Now, that's not easy for that company. It's not easy from a SEO standpoint. It's not easy from a marketing standpoint. It's not easy from a client infrastructure, a team member and skill set and building out your infrastructure and training. But it is convenient if you can pull it off for the client.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I always talk about as well with our clients when we're talking about upsells and getting more from a client, it's not always just about getting more money from a client for the sake of just trying to grow your business, which that is it. But it's also, like you talk about on your video on the website, the Pet Waste Millionaire website, I believe it was, when your video talking about Chorby and the story behind it, it's about seeing problems that you have yourself and seeing problems within the client that need to be solved.
Solving problems for the client,
and then you get paid. Right.
Exactly. It's about solving problems for the client. If you start there, making money and selling more generally should come naturally. Yeah. Right. So British Columbia, we talked. You're from. So you're born and raised in on the West Coast, Canadian West Coast. So when I was, I mentioned earlier, I've been to British Columbia. It's been 20 years.
Yeah.
But I played ice hockey. I was a goalie in high school and really played ice hockey. Yeah. I played ice hockey until the last year or so. But I flew into British Columbia, and I think I took another flight from Vancouver to Penticton, British Columbia.
Okay. Yeah.
What mountains are those in? There's a specific. It's called.
I'm not too sure. Like, I don't know the area like too well. I'm not. Yeah. Funny enough, like, I'm not the biggest outdoorsy person. I don't like. I mean, I go outside obviously, but I'm not too big into like going to mountain skiing. I don't snowboard, any of that. But I believe Penticton's a little bit up north. I think it's like a couple hours out of Vancouver here. Yeah,
it's beautiful though. So one of the most beautiful places I've been to. It's called the Cavan. No. Anyway, I forget the name of it. The valley that it's in. It's in a specific valley. But anyway, beautiful country. Beautiful part of the country.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm blessed to be able to grow up here and be around the environment, and it's also great, like, just as a creative outlet, just being around forests. You can go ski, you can play around a golf, and you can go swimming all in the same day.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, like, if anyone's watching this and you're thinking about coming out to Vancouver, definitely do it.
Yeah.
Nice. So is there like I can speak to in the U.S., specifically in Texas, lawn maintenance, so like mowing services and fertilization weed control are some of the highest volume of home services, on a recurring nature. Is there one or a few specific of those types of services in your area? Is it snow removal? Is it tree trimming? What is it?
Yeah, so we've got pretty much everything. It's not too, I guess I'll say, sophisticated in terms of the kind of the reoccurring space. We're still, at least from where I'm from, on the North Shore. We have the North Shore, and then it's separated by an inlet, and then you got Vancouver. And so the Vancouver part is pretty dense in terms of homes, and then Burnaby is another city there. But it's not too sophisticated. It's still kind of that local vibe.
It's fragmented.
Yes, exactly. For which each city has their kind of own couple big service providers that they use. And then there's a few like really big giants within that for providing services like lawn care and the fertilization, the snow removal, right?
Is it Yard Dogs? Have you heard of Yard Dogs?
I haven't heard of Yard Dogs, no.
Yard Dogs is a fertilization weed control company in Canada. I really don't know exactly where they are. Anyways, they're the first ones that came to my mind, really the only ones that come to my mind as far as the biggest.
So they're a company in Canada.
That's literally the only thing I know.
I feel
that's
like
a whole country.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I understand that.
That's always how the conversation goes when I'm talking to people outside of Canada. It's like, when you talk about Canada, if you're not from Canada, it's like you're talking about somewhere that just doesn't exist, or like something that you heard in like like Narnia or something. It's like, like that thing was in Canada, It's like
it's also like it's the same thing if like we went to the same university. Yeah. Like, did you know that one guy? He went there.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Stephen, I knew a guy named Bill once. He was from Canada. Do you know a guy named Bill from Canada?
Oh, Bill. Yeah, Bill. Yeah, I know Bill. Yeah.
Listen, I thought you might know. It's in the home services sector. I'm pretty sure it's Vancouver. I could be wrong on that one.
I'll look it up. Yard Dogs.
It's I'm pretty sure it's called Yard Dogs.
Okay.
But they spoke at a landscape summit. It was put on by Mike Andes. But that is two guys that run it, and they had a really interesting story about their beginnings and how they started. Anyway,
oh, cool. Okay,
I will move off of that subject, EJ.
So this is what we do, Stephen. He does most of the talking, and then I just wait for things to make fun of him about.
Okay, yeah.
It gets nice.
Good dynamics. Yeah.
And then thankfully I'm in charge of our editing, so I could get to just edit
just
all
clip it
that
out.
stuff
Yeah. Yeah.
So
note
me
to
being
self.
an idiot doesn't come up.
Note to self.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I love it. So is running paid digital ads, you have SEO. What other services are you specializing in, Stephen?
Yeah, so we're mainly doing SEO and then conversion rate optimization on the website to, when people are getting traffic coming onto a website, then you don't want to just have this like blank website with not that much on it. It's not optimized for conversions, just a bunch of text. Like nobody's going to convert on a website like that, at least in the home service space when we're talking about the target market of homeowners that are looking for a service on their home. We're doing that. We're doing Google Ads. We've dived a little bit into social media. I never offer that as a service, or I won't offer anything as a service unless we're really confident that we can deliver on it. But we're kind of slowly easing our way into the social media space because it's great for at least what I've seen the sales process and closing deals, right? With our clients, they don't get too many leads coming through their social media, but it's fantastic for increasing their perceived trust and authority in the mind of the prospect. So we're really doing work on the lead generation side and then the sales side of things with clients as well, helping them close deals. Yeah.
Are you one person, or are you a few people in the biz? What was that?
Yeah, so good question. So I started off, like I mentioned, as a freelancer. This was back in 2022. So 2021, 2022, and it was just myself. And then at the end of 2022, I kind of always knew that I wanted this to be a business, right? And there's huge aspirations for this. It's, I'm 22 years old, still young. And so there's a lot of time for things to grow. But right now we're 4 total. So at the end of 2022, it was just me. And I was like, you know what, there needs to be a change. I'm just freelancing right now, but I really want to grow a team because, that's what I want this to be. I don't want this to just be a one-man band, which there's nothing wrong with that. As a freelance marketer, or even in the home service space, if you run just a one-man show, nothing wrong with that. If that's what you like, if that's what your goal is. For myself, I was like, you know what? I want a team with me. I don't want to just go this alone because I love working with people. And so, from the beginning of 2023 to the end of 2023, we hired on 3 more people and continue to grow.
That's fantastic.
Big plan for 2024. Yeah.
That's great.
So what are your big what do they call them? Big BHAGs, your big, hairy, audacious goal. Where do you want to be? Like you said, you're young, you're ambitious, you're just getting started, but you got big plans. Tell me about more of the future.
Yeah. So, when I think about the long-term goals, and, this doesn't just apply to me, but really anyone, because I know a lot of your listeners are going to be in the home service space. And so for, the listeners right now thinking about the long-term goals, I don't have a huge goal in mind. All I know that I want to do is to be able to give other people just like me in the position that I was in, starting off a business, not really knowing what to do, the tools and the ability to be able to help them grow a business. And that's what I'm currently doing, right? That's why I put out content. That's why I love helping people, not just our own clients. And so that's really the long-term vision, is to be able to be that, someone who's a reliable, trustworthy source of information to go to for business advice, to be able to start it or even just grow an existing business.
Right.
And so I don't, especially like you're saying, as a very young individual, this is probably not going to be the business that I have in 50 years, right? In 50 years time, or 60, 70 years time. I'm still around at that point, but it's the vision is going to be going. I know the vision is going to continue whether I'm in the business or not.
That's awesome. It's funny you say that. You're not sure if this will be in 50 years, if this is be the business or industry you're specifically on. I remember the same thing. I remember being 24 and I met my wife, my now wife. And I told her, I said, I'm in mowing. I do mowing and lawn and landscaping, but mostly it's mowing. And I remember telling her, I won't be in mowing forever. I love business. I just love business is what I said. And then fast forward, and this was, it was about a year and a half later that I started the poop scooping. Yeah. And so I remember her like thinking we were married. We were only married like a year, and she was a teacher. Okay. She's much more academic than me. She's more like she went to college. She very much so GPA matters a lot to her. I don't even know what a GPA is hardly, but But I can remember as a teacher, she was a teacher. We've been married a year, and I told her, "Yep, I said I'm going to start my next business. It's going to be poop scooping, pet waste removal." Yeah. And she was horrified. She was like, okay, when you said you were going to go into new businesses, I thought it was going to be an upgrade from lawn mowing. And so I can literally remember sitting in the car with her telling her, you just wait. I'm going to tell all of the people you work with that your husband scoops dog poop for a living. Anyways, it's a good laugh now. But awesome. Anyway, the point is you never know. You never know. You end up. I'll just say that the days are long, the years are short in business. It seems so. Right. You never know.
Yeah.
So Stephen, that vision that you have. So I imagine it's a culmination of lots of different things that have impacted you to want to have that as the impact that you want to have on the industry and beyond that. Is there anyone that you are looking to that is a mentor, whether an actual personal one-on-one coach mentor or someone else who's done what you're wanting to do? Is there anyone like that you're looking to as an example?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the mentorship and the training and the knowledge and wisdom that I've been able to take from other people is the majority of what I would attribute at least my current success to. And where I'm at right now. And so it's been a lot of people, right? A lot of people that are online, Alex Hermosy, you probably know about him, very big one there. But other people in my life as well, like, mentors that I've had growing up that are successful in business, well ahead of me that I've been able to take things from and just speak into me of how to, grow a business and the beliefs. I think the beliefs have been really huge about what's possible and the beliefs around life, but also just, coaching programs and paying for people to teach me things so that I don't have to make those mistakes all myself. Right. That's been the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you picked up Hermosy, whatever, his books, $100 Million Leads, $100 Million.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I initially got the $100 Million Offers book. I read that, used that information. That was huge. And then it
happened.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to cut this out here.
Yeah, you're good. We're back.
You're restart
out for a
second.
We're
back.
Yeah, okay, you're good. Sorry.
Did you keep going? Okay.
Good.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just restart that line. What was I saying?
$100 million leads.
I picked up. So initially, I picked up the $100 Million Offers book, and then read that, implemented it. That was huge. And then I just kept following ever since, and the content and picking up on his advice to young entrepreneurs. Right, that's really been what it is. And then I got $100 Million Leads. I haven't read the whole thing yet. I've kind of skimmed through the parts, just gone through the table of contents, and be like, I need to learn that right now. So I'm just gonna read this chapter, and then going back to it and taking from it what I need in that time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I spoke at a conference in Kentucky last year, and what I ended up speaking on, I took a lot of what I had to say was adapted from $100 Million Leads book.
Oh yeah.
Hermosy is a very interesting character. He's not God, right? Not everything he says is perfect and not what you should take as gospel. However, a lot of the experience that he has and that he shares is so applicable to a vast majority of people that can make real impact in your business like quickly.
Yeah,
very quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask if there's any like specific mindset or practice that you've taken away from following him that you've been able to implement and share to other people, like your clients.
I mean, a lot. There's the better question would be like, what isn't there? You know, there's a ton of stuff. That's a really good question. I would have to think about that because, I think that the biggest thing is just beliefs around business and beliefs around the world that I've had before that didn't necessarily serve me. You know, like one of the biggest things I've taken away is just paying for education and courses to learn things like I mentioned before so that I don't necessarily have to make those same mistakes myself. And solving problems for the marketplace, you know, that was a big thing too, really understanding the needs of customers and getting feedback from my customers. And I mean, this is even applicable for the home service space, not just for myself as a marketing agency, for people who serve homeowners, getting feedback from them. Like, what do you need? What problems are you currently having in your home? Like we talked about those upsells. That's where the upsells come, right? Yep. It's just solving those problems and getting feedback from the customers is huge. And actually, that's what I'm talking about at the Jobber Summit is collecting data from customers to make better decisions around marketing. Yeah.
We were going to get to that point. So it was a perfect natural segue.
There you go.
Curious. Yeah. Would you mind? So obviously you're March 6th, Jobber's putting on a free webinar. They're splitting it into 2 separate times. So they're basically going to have all the same recordings in the morning and all the same recordings in the evening. And everyone that's attending gets to speak to the speaker via chat message while it's going on. So really interesting engagement piece that they're doing there. And apparently I just plugged it. I wasn't really intending to, but there it is. So Steve, talk to us a little bit more about what it is that you're like. How did they find you? Did you request it? Did they come to you? And what was the process of putting that presentation together and then actually speaking? Yeah,
so they definitely did not come to me. I came to them. I don't think I have a big enough audience for them to come to me, at least yet, I'll say. But no, I came to them. So this was in, I think it was so it was 2023. It was, I believe like May of 2023, they advertised on their social media. And like, to be honest with you, I don't even remember how I found out about Jobber. I don't even remember. It like could have been a client. It could have been just seeing them on social media. But probably their ads, honestly. I think it was like an ad from Instagram because, and I still get ads to this day for Jobber. It's like, yo, you don't need to be like bombarded. I know that you're great. Like I'm like shouting you out all the time. Don't worry. But I think it was an ad on my Instagram. I checked it. I was like, hey, they have this summit. I was like, oh yeah, Jobber. I've heard about these guys before. And then I applied. What about you? Did they come to you or?
They did, yeah. They approached me. I was not expecting it at all, and man, it was a huge honor. And they actually asked me to speak on something that I haven't done in a while in training and development.
Right.
And so it was fun to use those muscles again and put together a presentation to talk about what it looks like to curate a training program that's accessible and can be implemented well, that's scalable. Yeah, it was really, really fun. I think the hardest challenge that I found was that they only gave me 20 minutes to talk.
I
think I can talk 20 minutes about this mouse. So it was hard to narrow it down. And the event coordinator, when she was giving the pitch on like what it is that they are looking for from their speakers, I'm pretty sure she said it like I counted 4 times that she was like, 20 minutes. It's very practical information. We don't want people to have fluff. And I was like, oh, shoot. This is going to be hard. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun and really interesting with utilizing the contractor to an AV company to send out all that equipment and then to remotely record it. Like it was a really super smooth experience. And so now I'm in the final stages of getting my resource packet, my handout. That I'm going to have ready for everyone. That's the last piece that I've got to finish up with it.
Okay, nice.
I've got
Jobber didn't invite me to give a keynote.
No,
they sure didn't.
They didn't invite me.
Maybe next year. You'll get him next year, EJ.
Maybe next year.
Okay.
We'll see. No, I'm not going to.
Depends on how good Ben does.
Yeah, we'll see how well this podcast goes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's awesome.
No,
it was a lot of fun. So you're talking about how to acquire more leads and convert them. So do you mind giving us a sneak peek on like some of the key points that you had?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is coming back to Alex Hermosy. This is really taken from his book, $100 Million Offers. He had this unreleased chapter where he talks about this system for generating more leads by sending out a survey to your pre-existing customers and asking them, hey, like, how did you find out about us? What was it about us that you actually liked? What made you decide to sign on with us and maybe not go with other quotes? And so taking that information and then using their responses in your own marketing and the messaging, right? Using those, and if you've got a ton of customers, a wide customer base of hundreds of people, like that's even better, right? Yeah. And you can even just use common sense and common knowledge to get that information and put that in your messaging. And then it's not just that, but also going forward, the qualification process for your customers, right? Depending on what trade you're in, you might have an opt-in form on your website, right? And asking them those qualifying questions of like, what problems do you have? What services do you need? How do you find out about us, right? So that you can see who's qualified and who isn't qualified. Because a lot of time, you don't want to be wasting time with people who are unqualified. Maybe, the tire kickers is the common phrase that people use in the trades. But yeah, that's about it. That's kind of the gist of this system. But I was really interested when I heard about your topic of training and training systems. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because at least from just perspective, with the limited time that I've been in this industry, what I see a big problem, even bigger than marketing, is the training systems that people have in place and talent sourcing.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was actually, again, 20 minutes was really freaking hard to narrow it down because I have a lot to say about this. But one of the first things that I kicked it off with was firstly noting that someone else is talking about this at Jobber in terms of recruiting and hiring. So I don't want to dive into it a whole lot. But one of the things I mentioned is how important it is if you're in a position of going and sourcing to recruit and then hire people in, that you're focused pretty heavily on character. You're wanting to ask questions and get to know someone's character in the best you can, interview setting. Like that's not easy, but to focus on character, because if you have a training program that's designed efficiently, you can teach skills all day long.
Right.
But you can't teach character and you can't force that. And so that's a really difficult but necessary aspect for your business. Before you even start hiring people, you need to have a frame of reference and a mindset that you're focused on finding people with high character, high integrity, and you have an alignment on your core values. And then from there, your starting point, generally speaking, is you need to understand what are the roles that you need to fill. Because that's the other thing too that she mentioned, like the people that I'm speaking to, my audience. It's not necessarily like Chorby. Chorby, has over 30, 40 employees. This might be someone who's like, this is their first hire and they're just now getting ready to train someone. So there's some perspective that to keep in mind, but you need to understand what is it that you're like the objective you're trying to accomplish with the role, and then you're looking for the person to fill that role. But if you have an objective and key objectives for someone to accomplish in this role, that's your frame of reference of now identifying what information do they need to be able to win at their role. And so then you're starting to outline what is the actionable information. And then the second piece, or the next piece to that, is how do you make it accessible to them? So I think it's really easy to overcomplicate this process right here because, you're constantly getting bombarded with ads for a learning management system that you end up spending thousands of dollars on, and hours and hours and hours of time spent loading content into it. And then something changes, and then you have to spend hours changing it. And it's a really difficult and really gruesome process. if you overcomplicate it. And so it's about narrowing down to get as simple as humanly possible and making that information as accessible as possible to the people that need it. And then you have to leave space for coaching too, because you can't just give someone information and expect them to be good and get rolling. You have to leave space for coaching. And so there's a cycle of providing information, showing someone what they need to do, showing them what winning looks like, and then immediately getting them in there to actually start doing the job. Like that's how they're going to learn, is actually doing the job. But you have to be there to coach and guide when something is incorrect. And so you're looking at an alignment process. And so that's basically what I talked about, which is a really hard thing to implement from my experience. It's really, really hard. And so, but again, I try to leave it as practical as possible. And that's also why I'm giving like a very in-depth resource packet that gives examples. Like here's a HVAC technician and here's a process that I think would be helpful to look at and how you can actually design something to implement for them.
Nice. I feel like we could just clip that whole thing and use that as a YouTube video like that. Like you just really like, that was perfect.
That sounds like your notes for your keynote. You did a good job articulating it.
Dude, it's already done, man. I've already got it ready to go.
That's awesome.
I have 3 more in the pipeline that I'm working on that are just going to be canned keynotes ready to go.
That's awesome.
And just pray that someone says, hey, will you come and talk?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, man. So what's next for you, Steven? I know we EJ asked about the big, hairy, audacious goals, but practically, what's next for you in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Next is the content side of things. So, with the vision being to help as many businesses as possible and not just our own clients. That was the focus before of just starting off the business, right? It's just getting clients. It's just getting people in the door that I can make, I can make money. I could actually have a legitimate business that now this is not just me being a freelancer. I have the evidence now to start making content. Yeah.
I understand completely.
Yeah. To now start making that content and start fulfilling that vision. And that's what a big part of 2023 has been about, was actually just defining what the vision is. Beforehand, it was just, you guys know, just getting off the ground.
Yeah.
Just not being broke was the vision before. And so now that it's like, okay, the head's above water, I'm actually doing it. I have to have something else that's driving me than just to make money. And so trying to define what that is and what the vision and the purpose of doing this is. And so, going back here to give you some context, the backstory. In high school, I was a tutor. That was kind of my one of my side hustles in high school. And I was actually terrible at math beforehand, and I had a tutor. And I saw how well it helped me, so I helped other people do it. And it kind of, thinking back on it, it could have been like a really viable business model. Like I should have actually turned that into like a business, because I loved it so much. And people were actually like requesting me to tutor them, but I couldn't because I had so many people asking me to tutor. But anyways, so I love teaching, basically, is what I was getting at there. I love teaching and providing information and value to people, right? I just love seeing people use the advice and the knowledge that I'm passing down and using it and getting results, and then telling me like, yo, I used this thing and it like really worked. Or like, I used that, that response handle for this lead and I like closed them as a deal. I was like, yo, like that's awesome. I love that. Like if I could just help one person, it makes everything worth it. Right. And you probably have the same thing here and feeling that, but where was I going with this? So that's the goal. That's to answer the question. The next thing is really scaling the content to be able to put out more valuable content on a consistent basis to just help more people on the social media side of things.
Yeah. We went through in I guess it was basically March of 2023 is when we started Media Club. So at Chorby. So we had the thought, like we knew that we wanted to do the same thing in terms of scaling the content at Chorby specifically. And so of course, like you're not going to get there unless you have a system in place in order to ride you through that. And so we had a really big emphasis on what system do we need to build so that we can scale this content. And Media Club was one of the really, I say one of, it is like without Media Club we wouldn't have been able to do this. But being able to post 4 times a day on all major social platforms. And so this is actually our internal team members at Chorby, where we're giving a frame of reference on the type of content to create. And when we equip them with, microphone and tripod, and things of that nature, and then they go and actually start creating. And so they'll start submitting it to my team. And then from there we edit it, and then we put it on the calendar and we publish it. We get all copy set in place, and everything gets rolling from there, with space for us to flex and be reactive as needed. But it's a primarily proactive approach, systematic approach to get the content and then get it published, but with a lot of incentivization worked into there.
Right.
But yeah, the impact that it's had for not just Chorby's social media, but for the culture of our team has had a tremendous impact.
It brings out the creativity. It brings out the creativity in technicians. It inspires even your newest team members that they can not only they can be a part of the growth of the company. They can put their face, they can put their experiences out through social media that's hopefully going to get clients. They can put their personalities on social media.
And just freaking have fun too.
And have fun.
Like this, it was this morning. We had one of our team members that edited. It was like 5 of our lawn care technicians and a couple other team members dancing. I never thought that would be the case.
A year ago, these guys wouldn't have even considered dancing.
But
now it's just part of the culture to show that you're having fun, to bring your personality into it, and to show your clients that you're people in the community as well, making a living. And you talked about that earlier, Stephen, with how you kind of approach local home service businesses, and that's what they want. That's what homeowners want. That's what our clients want. They don't want us to feel like they don't want a company that feels cold and like there's no central location. They want to know that it's part of the community. And a year ago, to Ben's talking about Chorby Media Club, we had this idea. It's like, okay, we've got plumbing, we've got lawn mowing, we've got tree trimming, we've got pest control, we've got pools. One person on social media isn't going to get that message across. There's just too many things.
Yes.
And so how do we figure out? And so I was like, well, we need to get our managers posting, the people that are leading each of these little micro businesses inside of a bigger business, these departments. How do we get them engaged? And man, we have an awesome team because they saw the vision, and we started out with 1 post a day. That was the goal, to be in Media Club. There was 5 team members that started out in Media Club, and each of those 5 had to put one thing out a day. And to be clear, they weren't having to post themselves. They just had to turn it into basically onto our chat. And then our marketing coordinator would take it from there and do something with it. But that really built us a library and built us up volume. But it also, it's like practice makes perfect. It got us practicing and getting good at it. And we are infinitely better than we were a year ago. And I predict that next year we'll be infinitely better than we are this year. I love it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. You kind of get you get better at it. I notice at least. Yeah. It's a learning curve. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Are you naturally in that
Steven,
way?
As
do you
start
post?
To close out?
Oh.
Sorry, Ben, we're getting a little bit of a lag. I wanted to ask you, Stephen, do you naturally post on social media? Is that something that you have to practice at to do, or do you naturally do that pretty good?
I think it came naturally, at least just the talking to the camera part.
Right.
I don't know why, it just came naturally, but it's absolutely like a muscle that you have to train.
Right.
As natural as you can be, it's always weird talking to nobody or talking to an image of just yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And also articulating. I'm not the best speaker. I don't articulate myself the best. There's absolutely still pieces I need to work on there, but I've definitely gotten better than I was 6 months ago.
Exactly.
So it's definitely a muscle to train of talking to the camera, and also just consolidating information in bite-sized pieces to make sure that it gets across properly. And then there's so many rabbit holes that you can get into with the algorithm and making thumbnails and the content. Like it's a lot. But I think the biggest piece has been, because I got really stuck into looking at the stats and the metrics, but ultimately coming back to the quality of content that's being produced. Like if I can put out quality content that actually advice that I would give myself.
Right.
If I can put out content that does that for somebody else, then I don't need to worry about making the best possible thumbnail, the best heading, which all matters. But coming back to the goal of helping businesses and giving them the tools to achieve their vision, that's what I'm doing this for. And so it's really easy to get wrapped up in the metrics, but just, that's been the biggest theme for me, or learning curve for me, is just not getting wrapped up in those numbers.
Awesome.
Yeah, man, it's almost it feels almost impossible in the early stages, because like you're putting so much time and effort and energy and money potentially into creating all this stuff, and you want to see a return. And so it's really difficult to like be able to have the perspective to put that in the back of your mind and just focus on quality at scale as being the main focus. I said this recently, that in these early stages of businesses or people, brands that are starting to create social content, that sometimes the mindset should be really focused on the direction is more important than the destination right now. Like the direction of actually going and creating this content and focusing on the next one being a little bit better. I hate saying this because it's so intangible, but 1% better on the next one, right? But the focus on just continually getting better, knowing that you're on the pathway, that pathway going in that direction is sometimes the best thing to focus on, and let that be your metric of guiding you. And as you get better, then you can start to look at the actual, those metrics and those KPIs and start to line it out in more detail. But in these early stages, I don't know that really makes sense for most people to focus on that.
It's also controlling the controllables, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of exactly what you're talking about. Like you can't control how many people are going to see your video. You can't control the engagement it's going to get necessarily. But in the early stages, like what I can control is the quality of content that I put out. And as long as I can control that and make sure that I'm actually putting out, like I mentioned, advice and information that I would personally give to myself or like one of my close friends or family members, then I'm doing my job. It's directionally correct, like you're saying, right?
Yeah. So speaking of, it's super important to me that as we start to close these out, that you get the time and space, Stephen, to say anything that you want to say to your audience, and any audience that you think is relevant. But if you have any kind of message that's important to you, that may be something that you communicate to your team members consistently, whatever the case may be, I want you to have a second to share what that is or what that could be.
Yeah, I mean, wow. That's a big one. I don't think I have any one thing in particular. I mean, there's always big themes that I communicate to my team, like controlling the controllables, right? Just working on what you can work on every day in and day out, and that's kind of where the growth happens. It is the small, it really is the small incremental changes, being lean and being able to make changes on a consistent basis and get feedback. But really, I actually had a question for you guys, either DJ or Ben. What's one belief that you guys see in young entrepreneurs in the home service space, whether that's a lawn care business, a poop scooper, or an HVAC? What's one belief that you see that is not serving them in the early stages that they need to change, or a character trait they need to change in order to take that next step and grow the business?
The idea that they can do it better themselves than having somebody else do it. Reverse that mindset.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that came to my mind is perfectionism is going to ruin you. If you think that everything has to be perfect and the next thing that you do has to be perfect and that's what's going to carry you to the next thing, I don't think that's realistic. I think it's way too complicated and you'll burn out. The thing to focus on is just doing the next best thing, but it doesn't have to be perfect.
Absolutely. I mean, and those two things go hand in hand, right?
Yep.
A lot of time with the business owner that thinks that there's nobody on the planet that can do it better than him, right? Is also a perfectionist, right? And those two things is, I've seen it too. You know, holding a lot of people back from hiring great team members and growing the business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd say the other one that comes to mind is soft skills. Home service industry, that people tend to be really good at their skilled trade. They don't tend to focus enough on the soft skills, the people side of things, because they're in a people business, but they tend to be focused on being really, really great plumbers or really, really great, lawn care providers or pet waste providers, but working on the soft skills and working on how to deal and work with people.
And so what's kind of as a follow-up question here, what's one way that you've been able yourself and also training other people to operationalize having better soft skills? Because like it's a soft skill. It's not as easy to train, but absolutely you can give people pointers to help increase those skills.
So first off, we talk about that quite frequently throughout our training, throughout our hiring, throughout and ongoing. If there's anything, we're actually pretty good at ongoing training. We're just getting to the point where we're really training hard skills with ongoing training outside of licensing and such. But we have always been pretty good, at least for the last 5, 6, 7 years, at training people on mindset. And again, that's kind of a bigger, even more macro term. Teaching people skills, but it's through books. It's through the things that taught me. Books, How to Win Friends and Influence People, for example. I talked about that yesterday in a podcast I was on, that being a major game changer book for me. But we have quarterly book reviews that everybody's invited to. Some are leaders that it's mandatory that they read the book and that they're in the book review. But for others, it's just it's recommended, it's encouraged. And the reason for that is because we want them to get better at whatever they're doing. We want them to we want their mindsets to grow. We want their experience even beyond the specific trade they may be working in and may be an expert in. We want them to grow personally in their relationships, because that's going to benefit us and them. If they can grow and understand that relationships are so important, both in business and in their personal lives, that's going to allow them to be overall better people, which means they're going to perform better.
Absolutely. I love that.
I think another way to look at that too is we can have these quarterly book reviews. We can have XYZ thing that you do that's going to help your team members focus on soft skills. What I think is important to know is you can't put the cart before the horse. You, the business owner and the key leadership, they need to be in alignment that this is a part of the culture within the organization, is to focus on developing people. Like if that's, and what I mean by that too is that's how they operate in their words and actions, is that and they back that up. If you have people that don't understand that or don't believe in that or don't see the vision of why that's valuable, and they're in a position of leadership, that's going to fall down in a bad way. So your culture has to support anything else that you do after that, anything else you implement.
Right. Because a big part that I see, at least personally, the mindset and coaching space today, I don't think it's anything new, is kind of this, informational overload, or like romanticizing collecting information or reading, this kind of mental masturbation of just like, I'm going to read all these books and then I'm going to be automatically just a smarter person. So do you guys have any systems for being able to like ensure that this is information that's not just going in one ear and out the other, but it's actually being like used in the organization and people are actually changing their behaviors because of it? Or is it something where you're just hiring great people in the first place that are going to take this information and just run with it?
You've got to hire the people that have the right mindset. If you just hire anybody, you're right. You're not going to shove these things down people's throat and get them to change. It has to be ingrained into the people. That goes back to what Ben talked about earlier, the character.
And I thought about this when I was in the training development space. Like, you have large, massive, huge corporate companies, and like they implement all of these different learning modules and however you want to frame that. There's a lot of different ways to go about doing it, but you're forcing the application of the information across such a wide audience. It's hard to imagine that they're actually executing well on that. Like regardless of whatever system you put in place, as you get more people, it becomes a lot more complex to actually execute on that well. There's a way to do it. Obviously, Chick-fil-A is a good example of that. But I don't know exactly how to do it if you're not focused on the culture that you build first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Those are really good questions, man. I like that.
I'll add one more thing to that. Ben, you're going to have to speak to them because honestly, I'm still working on memorizing. I know it's only 3 things, but when I didn't come up with it, at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night, it's hard for me to memorize, or it takes me a minute. But we're constantly working on this. And an example of what I mean by constantly working on it is even in our last executive team in-person meeting, we meet once a month for Chorby, once every other month for Chorby, once every other month for Scoop Soldiers, our executive team. It's a shared team that I work with. Ben's on that team. But just even in the last 30 days, we really worked to narrow down Ben, I'll let you take this over, but 3 specific things that are really our principles, our corporate principles.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's funny is there's what seemingly is an infinite number of like things that are important to us, right? So it's really hard to narrow it down to a point where what we're communicating is going to stick in someone's head. But the ones that we narrowed it down to is what we're calling OFT. So OFT, O being having an ownership mindset, F being that you're living future focused, and T that you're operating with transparency in all things. So those 3 key elements are something that we believe are in outrageously important, but have to be in the minds and actions of all of our team members. And so that ownership mindset. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, sorry, Ben. I thought you were wrapping up there, but I was just going to say,
I can talk forever.
These are things that I mean, we're always working on. A year ago, it was actually we had it at 7 things, but it was like that's just too many, and nobody could remember. We couldn't really do much with them, and so in 2024, we will really work to execute and to implement this OFT into our culture.
I don't like OFT, by the way.
I don't either. But I said that the other day. OFT though. I mean, how and we've tried to figure out like TFO. I mean, who knows? TOF. Fought. Yeah. We talked about
that. You could do foot if you add another O.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want it to be core, CORE, and I want to backfill that. Like that's what I want. But
fair enough.
I kept getting outvoted.
Yeah. I don't remember you even bringing that up, so you weren't yelling loud enough, apparently.
I guess apparently not. You were saying something, EJ.
Oh no, I kind of finished. The point is that we're constantly working and working towards that, and it's not like it's not a destiny. Right. You're not going to get there. Like you're always working on it.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're probably kind of backsliding a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you can give one piece of advice then to maybe younger entrepreneurs or people who now have an established business, that it's not necessarily just them as a one-man show anymore. They're actually like working at growing this and getting into trying to define like what their vision and their core values are. Like what piece of advice could you give to them to help them to define what those values actually are? Because like you're talking about, like these aren't just values that are kind of up in the air, broad things. They're actually this decision criteria for making decisions about business, right?
Yeah. So go ahead, Ben.
So I honestly don't remember where I heard about this, but it's been sticking in my head ever since I heard it, that maybe the focus is not for your people and thus the core values that we're talking about in a second. Maybe it's not about the things that you do, but it's about the people that you want them to become. And so the people that you want them to become is what should be supporting in those core values. And so maybe that's the focus. If you're in a position where you're starting to figure out, okay, what do I establish as my core values of my business? Who are the people that you want on your team, whether it's leadership or whether it's out in the field or whatever the case may be for your business? But who are the people that you want them to become? And then you start to outline those core principles.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Anything to say, EJ?
No, I thought that was well said, sir.
Well, I just meant like you had a point that you were going to say before I interrupted you.
Yeah, my ADD got me. I forgot what it was. It wasn't that important.
The ADD strikes again. I feel you on that one.
I keep wanting to blurt out loud. I know we're wrapping up here. I keep wanting to blurt out loud, Brent, I never want to wear these headphones again. They hurt.
Brent is our media producer.
Okay,
so we just give him all of our problems, and he has to fix them.
Yeah.
I feel you, Brent. I used to do some of the tech at our church on Sundays, like the sound system and stuff like that. So I'm a little bit acquainted with getting the butt end of the problems.
Yeah. The butt
I mean,
end
that's
of
kind of
the
what being a business owner is too. You're getting the problems that nobody else wants to deal with. But
yeah,
I was talking to a business owner yesterday, and he said that people don't talk about when you sign up to be a business owner that you're really signing up to be a firefighter. You just put fires out every day. That's what you do for your job.
Y'all crushed on Hermosy earlier, Alex Hermosy, and I love that guy as well. But I haven't. I think I'm less focused on. I focus more on the business, so I love Gary V. If you follow Gary V at all,
yeah,
so
Gary's
I love
Gary's
Gary
great.
V.
I love the energy.
Yes,
yeah.
I love his energy, but he regularly talks about CEOs and leadership, and when you're the leader of a business of any size. And the bigger you get, the more you're simply just dealing with the problems, because your only job is to deal with the problems that nobody else knows, or the solutions that nobody else has. They're bringing you all your problems.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's funny the way he puts it, but he takes full responsibility of it too, and puts it all on the person at the top.
Yeah.
Stephen, you mentioned you were going to church. Would it be weird or strange if I prayed us out?
No, not at all. No, I was going to say absolutely, but that was the wrong answer to the question. Let's do it, man. Love it.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time that we've had together with Stephen. Well, thank you for facilitating this connection. This has been a really awesome experience so far, and I'm really excited where this can take us. As we talked about culture, we've talked about leadership and adding value to people. 24, that Lord, that you would use other people, that you would use books, and you would use whatever to help educate us and inspire us to action, so that we can add value more and more to the people that we have influence over and beyond that. God, I pray specifically for Stephen as he is venturing into focusing on the content that he builds. And so, God, I would just ask that you bless him and his venture, and that what he creates is something that adds tremendous value way beyond whatever he thinks of right now. Whatever expectation that he has, God, I ask that you would bless that beyond his imagination. Thank you again for this time. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Amen. Thank you, Ben.
Oh, man. Yeah, absolutely.
And Stephen, thank you. Thank you for having us on. Or excuse me, I don't know why I just said having us on. Thank you for being on.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being on.
And you guys are welcome to come back anytime.
Thanks for being on. Awesome. Truly, it's a pleasure to meet you as well.
Yeah,
and real quick shout out, Car Wrap City, this wrap here behind me. I know Ben mentioned it, I think. So we're here at the Car Wrap City headquarters here in Carrollton, Texas, doing this as we begin to launch we're getting our bus wrapped, the Pet Waste Millionaire bus, as we take this Pet Waste Millionaire podcast on the road. So thanks again, Stephen, truly.
Yeah,
I
Stephen,
appreciate you guys. Yeah.
Go follow or go search and find the Pet Waste Millionaire and all the socials. Go follow it. We're going to be embarking here in the next couple of weeks out across the United States.
Yeah,
we're going to be going and spreading the word of the Pet Waste Millionaire, but also the pet waste removal industry in and of itself. We want to gain awareness to that and be the leaders as best that we can.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being on.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. It's been an honor.
All right. We'll talk soon, Stephen. You take care, sir.
Sweet.